Hey everyone, this week we get another episode of Westworld, which means we are way more confused than last week. And today I'm going to add some clarity to the ending of Westworld Season 2, Episode 3, specifically talking about Dolores, Teddy, and Ghost Nation. And no doubt there will be spoilers throughout this entire video. This week on Dolores and Teddy's relationship, we get closer to the answer of, will Teddy turn on Dolores? And luckily Teddy has only died once this season, but it looks like that one death we see of him laying in the water with all the other hosts is definitely coming up soon. In my Season 2 Episode 1 analysis, I mentioned that Teddy may turn on Dolores at some point this season, as we see Teddy looking at Dolores' murder spree with extreme disapproval, as he's against killing these innocent people, but he doesn't really have a choice in doing so. In this episode, when she's explaining herself to the Colonel, Dolores refers to herself as Wyatt. In Season 1, Wyatt was the opposite of everything that Teddy stood for, as he would appear in the memories of Teddy. From what Teddy remembers of Wyatt, he was insane, a charismatic leader, and very manipulative. It was later revealed that Arnold was the one who morphed Wyatt with Dolores. And when she refers to herself as Wyatt in this episode, it's so we know that Wyatt is still an active narrative. Now that Dolores is playing out this narrative, she's exercising the attributes that Teddy hated about Wyatt, like her being charismatic enough to quickly convince the Colonel to hand over his men and defeat this unknown threat that's coming their way. Then exercises the insane and manipulative part of Wyatt as she traps all the Colonel's men up against a closed door of a fort, then has her men execute the soldiers through the door, while successfully blowing up the humans. Wyatt believed that the world did not belong to the gods, but it belonged to him. Bernard questions Dolores, asking her what she really wants. Dolores says to dominate this world, and there's a fantastic quote from Season 1 describing Wyatt, which was, Wyatt disappeared while out on maneuvers. He came back with some strange ideas. He claimed that this land didn't belong to the old natives or the new settlers, that it belonged to something that had yet to come. And Dolores says something very similar to this in the Season 1 finale, as she tells William this world doesn't belong to you or the people who came before, it belongs to someone who is yet to come. Dolores is becoming more of Wyatt and less of Dolores with every episode this season, as her new narrative is completely mirroring these lines of dialogue. And the most interesting thing about this episode was how Teddy concluded the fight between the humans, the Colonel's soldiers, and Dolores. Dolores tells Teddy to take the Major out back and execute him, dehumanizing the Major, telling Teddy to take this dog out back and put him down with the rest, referring to the other soldiers remaining. And Teddy is so freaking conflicted in this moment. He has to follow Dolores, but he is against the Wyatt in her. Teddy is somewhat powerless when it comes to Dolores. He follows her without question because it's part of his narrative. Yet this season, he's been tolerating Dolores killing other humans and betraying the other hosts, because it's written for him to stay by her. In the first season, Teddy explains that Wyatt could manipulate him, causing him to massacre the other hosts at Escalante, and later it's revealed that Wyatt was Dolores, as she was the one who told him to execute all the people in the town. And Dolores looks upon a similar situation where she tells Teddy to kill other people for her. In this scene, the Major claims that he and Teddy are not that different, both trigger men for tyrants, but claims that he knows what he really wants, unlike Teddy, as Teddy is not so sure about following orders from Dolores, but Teddy ends up not killing him. He also refuses to kill any of the other men and tells them all to get out of here. He's going against Dolores' orders, not following her like he did in the past, and not killing anyone and not being haunted by his actions. It appears that Teddy is now taking control of his narrative, and Dolores looks down in disappointment as Teddy didn't follow her, and she tragically claimed that Teddy is all she has left. But now it looks like she has nothing left, as she can no longer trust Teddy. And there is one question that everyone I know is asking, which is, who is the girl we see in the Indian world at the beginning of this episode? This girl named Grace gives us more of a perspective to the other Raj world, and in this world she sees a human couple dead, and one of the hosts in this world says a familiar line, which is, these violent delights have violent ends, showing us that every other park is being affected just like Westworld, and how the stakes are now real and nobody has anything under control. This girl escaped from murderous Indians only to be captured by more Indians, and this unfortunate girl must be William's daughter. The last time we saw his daughter was when she was small enough to dance on James Delos' feet. If she was shown to us now in the present timeline, she'd be in her early 30s or late 20s, just like her character is in this episode. And this I don't really know for sure, so don't hold it against me if I'm wrong, it's just pure speculation at this point. And another important thing about her is her running into the Indians at the end of this episode. I think we're meant to think that Ghost Nation is dangerous, and that Grace is going to be taken prisoner or have her life in jeopardy. But when you look back in the previous moments in this episode and season 1, it might not be the case. Ghost Nation could be set up to protect the humans. If Elsie ended up surviving past season 1, she could have altered their narratives, the same way that we see Bernard tweak the settings of Rebus this episode, as we see Rebus go from being one of the cruelest leaders to someone who would shoot down all of his own men and chase down a woman to protect her. And if this same thing happened with the Ghost Nation hosts, it would explain why they refused to listen to Maeve, and they were debating letting her group pass safely because they weren't harming the human that they were with, which would explain how Stubbs is still with us, and how he made it back alive. When the Indians end up chasing Maeve and Lee, it was most likely because they were trying to protect him. And if Ghost Nation is now trying to protect Lee and the other humans, it would also explain why Dolores is seen shooting one of them in season 2 episode 1. And those are all my thoughts on season 2 episode 3. If you guys like this video, I'm making an ending explained for every episode this season. Please subscribe to see more ending explains and fan theories on Westworld, and I will see you guys next week for episode 4.